Most men believe that the more they chase a woman, the more she will value them. But reality works in the opposite direction. The moment you stop chasing, something strange happens. She starts noticing you, thinking about you, and even chasing you emotionally. This is not manipulation, not games, and not arrogance. It's psychology. And today you'll discover the one powerful shift that changes everything in how women see you. Most men don't realize that attraction is not built by effort alone, but by perception. When you chase a woman too much, you unconsciously send a message that she is the prize and you are the one seeking approval. This dynamic changes how she emotionally evaluates you. Instead of seeing you as confident and grounded, she begins to see you as someone who is trying too hard to earn her attention. Attraction is deeply psychological, and the mind of a woman responds more to emotional signals than to logical intentions. When a man constantly texts, calls, explains himself, and tries to prove his worth, he removes all mystery from his personality. Mystery is one of the strongest triggers of attraction because it creates curiosity. Curiosity makes the mind active. The more predictable you become, the less emotionally engaging you feel. Chasing turns you into an open book, and an open book rarely excites anyone. The human brain is wired to value what feels slightly out of reach, not what is always available without effort. There is also a powerful concept called emotional value. Emotional value is not about money, looks, or status alone. It is about how rare your attention feels. When you chase, your attention becomes cheap because it is always there, always ready, always waiting. When something is cheap, the mind doesn't feel the need to protect or pursue it. On the other hand, when your attention is controlled, balanced, and selective, it becomes valuable. Women don't consciously calculate this, but emotionally they feel it. They feel the difference between a man who needs them and a man who chooses them. Another psychological factor is balance of power. In every relationship, there is an invisible balance of emotional power. The person who cares less often has more influence. When you chase, you tilt this balance completely against yourself. You become emotionally dependent on her responses, her mood, her approval. This dependence subtly repels because it creates pressure. Most women are not attracted to pressure. They are attracted to emotional safety and stability. A man who chases too much appears unstable, even if he has good intentions. Chasing also activates fear of loss in the wrong direction. Instead of her fearing to lose you, you become the one fearing to lose her. Your words, tone, and actions start reflecting this fear. You overthink messages. You worry about her reactions. You try to impress her constantly. This emotional state is felt, not heard. Women are highly sensitive to emotional undercurrents. They may not say it directly, but they feel when a man is operating from insecurity rather than confidence. Confidence in psychology is not loud behavior or arrogance. It is emotional self-sufficiency. A confident man enjoys connection but does not beg for it. He is interested but not obsessed. He is present but not desperate. When you chase, you unknowingly destroy this image. You tell her without words that your happiness depends on her decisions. This is heavy emotional responsibility, and most women instinctively pull away from it. Attraction grows in space, not in pressure. Space allows imagination, curiosity, and emotional investment to develop. When you constantly chase, you eliminate space. Without space, there is no room for her to think about you, miss you, or emotionally invest in you. You become a background noise instead of a meaningful presence. The psychology of attraction works quietly, and the more you try to force it, the more it slips away. Understanding this changes everything. When you stop chasing, you are not playing games. You are restoring emotional balance. You are allowing attraction to grow naturally instead of suffocating it with effort. The moment you shift from needing her attention to valuing your own presence, the entire dynamic begins to change in ways most men never expect. Most men believe that attraction is something they must create by impressing a woman, pleasing her, or constantly proving their worth. But the truth is far simpler and far deeper. The one thing that changes everything is not a trick, not a line, and not a strategy. It is self-respect combined with a clear sense of purpose. When a man truly respects himself and is focused on his own direction in life, his energy changes, his behavior changes, and the way women perceive him changes automatically. Self-respect means you no longer tolerate what contradicts your values. You stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, and overcompensating for someone who is unsure about you. You stop adjusting your personality just to fit someone else's expectations. Instead of asking, "How can I make her like me?" you unconsciously start asking, "Does this connection align with who I am?" This subtle shift is powerful because it moves you from a position of need to a position of choice. Women feel this difference instantly, even if they cannot logically explain it. Purpose is what gives your life weight and direction beyond relationships. A man without purpose often makes a woman the center of his world. He waits for her messages, revolves his schedule around her availability, and emotionally depends on her reactions. This creates a dynamic where she feels like the main source of his meaning. At first, it may feel flattering, but over time it becomes exhausting. Purpose changes this completely. When you have goals, passions, responsibilities, and ambitions that genuinely matter to you, your life does not pause for anyone. A woman becomes part of your journey, not the destination itself. When self-respect and purpose come together, your behavior naturally shifts. You no longer chase because you are busy building something meaningful. You no longer beg for attention because your time feels valuable to you. You no longer fear losing someone because you know your life still has depth and direction without them. This does not make you cold or indifferent. It makes you grounded. Grounded men are emotionally attractive because they create a sense of stability and strength without trying to show it. Women are not drawn to men who say, "I am confident." They are drawn to men who act like their lives matter. When you respect your boundaries, protect your time, and prioritize your growth, you send a silent message. I am not here to be chosen. I am here to choose. This mindset does not push women away. It makes them curious. Curiosity leads to emotional investment. Emotional investment leads to attraction. There is also a psychological aspect of challenge. When a man has purpose, he is not easily accessible at all times. Not because he is playing games, but because he genuinely has things to do, goals to pursue, and responsibilities to handle. This creates a natural sense of challenge. Challenge is not about being rude or distant. It is about being occupied with a meaningful life. A meaningful life is attractive because it reflects inner strength and direction. Self-respect also changes how you respond to rejection or uncertainty. Instead of panicking, chasing harder, or trying to convince her, you remain calm. You understand that attraction cannot be forced. You understand that walking away from what disrespects you is not weakness, but strength. This emotional maturity is rare, and rarity is attractive. When a man can say no to what does not align with him, he becomes emotionally magnetic. Purpose gives you emotional independence. Emotional independence does not mean you do not care. It means you do not lose yourself in caring. You can like a woman without losing your identity. You can desire connection without sacrificing your dignity. You can enjoy her presence without making her the only source of your happiness. This balance is what most men struggle to achieve, and it is exactly what most women find irresistible. When you stop chasing and start respecting your own journey, something subtle happens. Your words become calmer, your actions become slower, your presence becomes heavier. You no longer try to impress, you simply express who you are. In that moment, attraction stops being something you seek and starts becoming something that naturally finds you. Emotional independence is one of the most misunderstood qualities in relationships. Many men think that showing constant attention, reassurance, and emotional availability will make a woman feel secure and attached. But emotional independence works in the opposite direction. It is not about being emotionally distant or cold. It is about being emotionally complete within yourself. When a man is emotionally independent, he does not look at a woman as the solution to his loneliness, insecurities, or self-doubt. Instead, he sees her as a companion, not a savior. Most men unknowingly seek validation from women. They want approval, compliments, and constant confirmation that they are liked, desired, and valued. This need shapes their behavior. They overreact to small changes in tone. They become anxious when messages are delayed, and they try to adjust themselves to maintain emotional closeness. This pattern sends a silent message. I need you to feel okay about myself. Women feel this dependency even if it is never spoken. Dependency creates pressure, and pressure slowly erodes attraction. Emotional independence changes the emotional equation. When you are emotionally independent, your mood does not rise or fall based on a woman's attention. You enjoy her presence, but you do not collapse in her absence. You appreciate her interest, but you do not beg for it. This stability creates a sense of emotional safety. Women are naturally drawn to men who feel stable because stability suggests strength. Strength, in emotional terms, is far more attractive than excessive affection without control. There is also a psychological effect of unpredictability in emotional independence. When a man is not constantly seeking validation, his reactions are calmer and less reactive. He does not rush to explain himself, does not argue unnecessarily, and does not chase emotional reassurance. This makes him emotionally unpredictable in a healthy way. Healthy unpredictability sparks curiosity. Curiosity makes a woman more emotionally engaged because she cannot fully predict how he will react or how deeply he depends on her. Another important aspect is self-worth. Emotional independence comes from a strong sense of self-worth. A man who knows his value does not tolerate disrespect, mixed signals, or emotional manipulation. He does not argue to prove his worth. He simply steps back when something feels wrong. This behavior is not dramatic. It is quiet and firm. Quiet firmness is rare, and rarity naturally increases attraction. Women often test emotional boundaries unconsciously. A man who fails these tests by begging or over-explaining loses emotional value. A man who remains composed and self-respecting gains emotional authority. Emotional independence also affects communication. Instead of sending long emotional messages, you speak clearly and briefly. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond thoughtfully. Instead of asking for constant reassurance, you allow silence to exist without panic. Silence is not always negative. Sometimes it is a space where attraction grows. When you fill every gap with words, you remove the chance for emotional longing to develop. Many men fear that if they stop seeking validation, they will lose connection. In reality, the opposite happens. When you stop begging for attention, you become someone whose attention feels meaningful. Your presence feels chosen, not forced. Women are more likely to invest emotionally when they feel that your interest is genuine, but not desperate. Desperation repels because it suggests emotional weakness. Emotional independence attracts because it suggests inner strength. This does not mean ignoring women or acting indifferent. Emotional independence is about balance. You can care deeply without losing control. You can express feelings without surrendering your identity. You can desire connection without sacrificing dignity. This balance creates emotional tension in a positive way. Positive tension keeps attraction alive because it prevents the relationship from becoming emotionally predictable and one-sided. When a man stops begging for validation, he stops trying to prove himself. He stops performing for approval and starts living authentically. Authenticity is emotionally powerful because it cannot be faked for long. Women sense when a man is real, grounded, and emotionally complete. That completeness makes them feel that being with him is a choice, not an obligation, and that choice becomes emotionally compelling in ways that constant chasing never could. Scarcity and desperation are two emotional states that completely change how a man is perceived. Most men believe that being available all the time shows sincerity, loyalty, and interest. But in the psychology of attraction, constant availability often communicates the opposite of value. Scarcity, when natural and authentic, creates emotional weight. Desperation, when visible, dissolves attraction. The difference between the two is not about playing hard to get. It is about how you treat your own time, energy, and attention. Desperation appears when a man makes a woman the center of his emotional universe. He replies instantly to every message, rearranges his entire schedule for her, and constantly tries to stay connected. His life seems to revolve around her reactions. This behavior is not romantic in the long term, it is overwhelming. When someone is always present without limits, their presence becomes ordinary. The human mind rarely desires what feels unlimited. Unlimited access reduces emotional excitement because there is nothing to discover, nothing to earn, and nothing to miss. Scarcity works differently. Scarcity does not mean disappearing, ignoring, or acting cold. It means your time is genuinely occupied by meaningful things. Your attention is selective, not automatic. When you respond, it feels intentional rather than impulsive. When you show interest, it feels deliberate rather than compulsive. This kind of scarcity creates a sense of emotional value. Women begin to feel that your presence is not guaranteed, and that uncertainty makes them emotionally alert. Availability shapes desire because desire grows in contrast. When something is always there, it fades into the background. When something appears occasionally but meaningfully, it stands out. This is not manipulation, it is human psychology. People value what they feel they might lose more than what they feel they already own. When a man is scarce in a healthy way, he triggers this emotional mechanism without saying a word. There is also a connection between scarcity and confidence. A man who is comfortable with not being constantly available appears emotionally confident. He does not rush to prove his worth. He does not fear silence. He does not interpret every delay as rejection. This calmness suggests inner strength. Inner strength is attractive because it makes a woman feel that she is dealing with someone who is emotionally grounded rather than emotionally hungry. Desperation, on the other hand, creates imbalance. When you are always available, you unconsciously place yourself in a lower emotional position. You signal that your time is less valuable than hers. Over time, this imbalance changes how she feels about you. She may not consciously disrespect you, but emotionally she stops feeling challenged. Without challenge, attraction slowly fades. Attraction thrives on emotional tension, not emotional certainty. Scarcity also affects how conversations feel. When you're not constantly texting, your words carry more weight. When you speak less but meaningfully, your presence feels stronger. When you are not always explaining yourself, mystery remains. Mystery is not about hiding facts. It is about not exposing your entire emotional world at once. Emotional mystery gives space for imagination, and imagination fuels attraction. Many men fear that if they reduce availability, they will lose connection. But healthy scarcity does not destroy connection, it deepens it. When you are not always there, a woman gets the chance to think about you. Thinking about someone is the first step toward emotional attachment. When you are always present, there is no space for thought. Space is where desire quietly grows. Scarcity is powerful only when it is natural. Forced scarcity feels like manipulation and often backfires. Natural scarcity comes from a full life, clear priorities, and self-respect. When you genuinely value your time, others begin to value it too. When you genuinely respect your boundaries, others feel those boundaries emotionally. When you genuinely have things that matter beyond a relationship, your presence becomes something that must be earned rather than assumed. Desperation makes a man predictable. Scarcity makes him intriguing. Predictability kills excitement because there is nothing new to explore. Intrigue keeps emotions alive because it creates questions instead of answers. When you shift from desperate availability to meaningful presence, the emotional dynamic changes without confrontation, without arguments, and without dramatic gestures. The more you stop trying to be everywhere, the more your presence begins to matter everywhere. Most men believe that attraction changes only when they become richer, more handsome, or more successful. But the reality is that attraction often shifts because of subtle behavioral changes that alter the emotional dynamic. These changes are not loud or dramatic. They are quiet and consistent. When your behavior moves from emotional urgency to emotional control, from constant availability to meaningful presence, and from seeking approval to expressing self-worth, the way a woman experiences you changes without any confrontation. One of the most powerful behavioral shifts is learning to pause before responding. Many men reply instantly to every message because they fear losing connection. This instant response signals emotional dependence. When you begin to respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively, your communication feels calmer and more grounded. A slight delay is not manipulation. It is emotional stability. Stability makes your words feel deliberate rather than desperate, and deliberate words carry more emotional weight. Another important shift is how you handle attention. When you chase, you give attention without limits. You compliment excessively, initiate every conversation, and constantly try to keep the connection alive. Over time, this makes your attention feel ordinary. When you reduce unnecessary attention and offer it selectively, your attention becomes valuable. Value is not created by quantity, it is created by intention. When your attention feels intentional, it becomes emotionally meaningful. Your emotional reactions also play a crucial role. A man who chases reacts strongly to small changes in behavior. A delayed reply, a short message, or a slight change in tone can trigger anxiety or frustration. These reactions reveal insecurity. When you learn to stay emotionally steady despite uncertainty, your presence changes. Emotional steadiness suggests inner strength. Inner strength is attractive because it makes a woman feel that she is dealing with someone who is not easily shaken. Another behavioral shift involves boundaries. Many men sacrifice their boundaries to maintain connection. They tolerate disrespect, ignore red flags, and suppress their opinions to avoid conflict. This behavior slowly erodes respect. When you begin to protect your boundaries calmly, without anger or drama, your value increases. Boundaries are not walls, they are signals of self-respect. Self-respect changes how others perceive you because it changes how you perceive yourself. Communication style is another area where small changes create big effects. When you stop sending long emotional messages and start speaking clearly and briefly, your words feel stronger. When you stop explaining every feeling and start expressing only what matters, your communication becomes confident. Confidence in communication is not about dominance, it is about clarity. Clarity creates emotional authority, and emotional authority increases attraction. Your lifestyle also sends silent messages. A man who constantly rearranges his life for a woman communicates that his life lacks structure. When you prioritize your goals, routines, and responsibilities, your life begins to look organized and meaningful. Meaningful lives attract attention naturally because they suggest depth. Depth is emotionally appealing because it makes a man feel multidimensional rather than emotionally one-dimensional. Another subtle shift is how you deal with silence. Many men fear silence because silence feels like rejection. They try to fill every gap with messages, jokes, or explanations. When you become comfortable with silence, your presence changes. Silence creates space for imagination. Imagination fuels emotional curiosity. When you allow silence to exist without panic, you give her space to think about you rather than being constantly reminded of you.